Welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to show you how to convert a seat like this, a 1983 style headrest seat, also found in the later 4th gen cars as this seat is, into a 1982 PMD seat just like this one here. So if you want to know what's involved and how to do it in your own seat, stick around and we'll show you. The first thing we're going to want to do is to have a look at the seat itself and what's involved in taking it apart. So let's turn the seat over onto its side and take a closer look. So let's take a look at what this seat actually is. It has the seat back with the wrong profile for the seat bolsters, as we see here. We have the seat base, which has the wrong foam insert and the wrong profile there also. And we have the hinge here with different plastic work to what we find on the PMD seat. We have, of course, the headrest itself, which if I turn that round, we can see is held in there with a couple of screws, if I can get the camera to focus. And of course, unlike the PMD seats, this has fabric covering the entire back of the seat, even including the latch for rotating the back forward. So, first thing we're going to look at is getting this seat stripped down. Let's make a start. The first thing we're going to do is remove the 2 Phillips screws from here and here. This will remove the plastic cover, and we'll have probably 13mm bolts behind here to remove. So we're going to go ahead and remove that now. Having removed the 2 screws from here and round there, we can simply lift this plastic cover up and remove it, and this releases access to the main hinge where it bolts in here and here, and these are 13mm bolts, and this will release this side of the hinge from the seat base. So let's go ahead and take those bolts out. It's worth noting when removing the 2 13mm bolts that the longer of the 2 goes through the back here, and the shorter of the 2 goes through the front. As we rotate the seat over on the opposite side, we can see we have a Torx type bolt, and this is a T50. I've already actually started to undo this bolt, so it won't take much slackening off here with the ratchet. We'll just go ahead and undo that and then probably finish it off by hand, just to get it to release away from the thread and also to pull past the fabric. You may need to give it a little bit of a tug when pulling it up, just to get it to pull past the fabric, as the threads may snag on the fabric as you try and release the bolt. Here we go, give it a little twist, give it a little tug, and it's away. Now, when we remove this bolt, it's worth noting the washer I'm pointing to. This washer is important when putting it back together. When you get any nuts and bolts with washers, it's always worth keeping them together to make sure that we know which one goes with which. And we can see the T50 here has not only a thread, but also a shoulder and a plastic ring style washer. And this just helps the bracket here to rotate against the washer as it's on the fabric. And this gives a nice smooth action then when rotating the seat back forwards and backwards to allow passengers in the back. With this bolt removed, the seat base is now separate from the seat back. So as we twist this over, the seat base will fall away, and we will be left with the seat base itself, and the rest of the hinge is now still bolted to the seat back. So now, taking a closer look at the seat back itself, we can see that the hinge is actually fitted inside the fabric. So in order to remove this hinge, we're going to actually need to remove the 2 bolts behind the fabric, and to do that we need to remove the fabric from the seat. Okay, so the first thing we want to do when removing this cover from this style of seat is, if you can see, there's a plastic channel here. If I zoom in there, this plastic channel, and we need to actually lift up the material from there and get it to part. Now, it doesn't want to release, so I'm just going to fetch a screwdriver and help prise this away. Oh no, there we go, a little good tug and it's come out. Okay, so we can see there's plastic here on the material, and it's just hooked in underneath here. Once that's released, we can just peel it back. Having released the plastic connecting lugs here so that the material's out, it releases and reveals hog rings holding the material in here. So if you were wanting to reuse this seat and recover it normally, you'd need to remove these hog rings, and there's a few ways we can do that. You need to get something underneath the hog ring and twist it and try and open it up to release it. Now, because we're going to be converting this to a PMD seat, I actually don't care. So what I'm going to do is just cut the material to release it. And it doesn't matter about the foam because we will not be reusing the foam either. So let's go away and try and cut this. Always cut away from yourself with a knife. Don't want any nasty accidents, lose any fingers. And that's released the material here. Now what we need to do is start to peel the material backwards up the seat. Now on this particular seat cover, the way it's been fitted, we actually have Velcro on the inside here, and then the insert material here is just stuck to it. So we just need to peel this firmly away on both sides, and this will release the cover. There was also a hog ring here which we've just cut away, again because we're not using the material, and this will allow us to begin to peel back the seat cover. When peeling the seat cover back, on this style of seat the latch actually comes through, and we can remove this black bit here from the hinge, but for the ease of just getting this cover off, I've just used the knife and cut around it, and that released the cover to be able to be peeled back even further. So we'll go ahead now and peel the cover right the way back. There is more Velcro here across the centre. And of course, if we peel back the foam here, we can see the hinge bolts which we need to remove to release the hinge itself from the frame. So the next stage, once we've peeled this back this far, is to remove this actual hinge. So we'll go ahead and remove these two bolts now. So the first bolt is out, and this is a long bolt. We'll go ahead now and remove the second bolt, another 13mm. If you have a zip gun, of course, it's a much quicker way of doing it than using a ratchet. But for this, we'll just do it with a ratchet and by hand. Just tighten it up, back to the ratchet. Here we go. And this one is also a long bolt, so we've used two long bolts on this one, on this hinge. Now I just thought I'd take a moment to show you the difference between the early 1983 style hinge and the later 4th gen style hinge. When we take a look at these hinges, at first they do appear to be very similar, and indeed they will fit between the two styles of seats. However, the fixings on the seats where the plastic trim goes, and on the earlier style hinge we have two plastic trims, and on the later style just one, there are differences, and indeed the later hinge doesn't have the fixing areas that we need for the plastic trim that bolts up the side of the back on the seat on the Viscount seat. Now, other than that, on this side they look very, very similar. I'm going to take a moment to turn them over now and have a look at the back. And we can see that the later style hinge has a plastic trim which is already fitted to the hinge. Now I'll just take a look if I can get that off easily, and no, it seems quite well fixed on there, so we'll leave it. And the earlier style hinge, that actually has the plastic trim as a separate part, and it covers more of the hinge and protects the seat when the hinge is fitted. So we can see there's some fundamental differences between these two hinges. If you're enjoying this video, why not go down the bottom, hit that thumbs up, give us a like, and of course subscribe if you've not already subscribed. Subscription is completely free. Now, let's get back to the seat. So what we need to do now, having peeled the seat cover all the way up, is we need to remove these 2 screws here and lift up this plastic cover out of the way so that we can raise this all the way up and try and gain access to releasing the actual head restraint from the base. Now ultimately it doesn't matter because we're not going to be using this. If you are struggling to get this high enough to get this off, you can actually just cut this straight off because we're going to be removing it anyway and it won't be used. Now as we see here, I have removed the main seat cover and I've done this simply by cutting it away. I do need to cut the head restraint off, but we're just going to look at the fundamental differences here. We see down the sides where the metal bars would be in a PMD seat, we have Velcro down both sides and across the centre. So there are a lot of differences and this seat foam just isn't going to work for our PMD seats. So what we need to do now is to actually peel away and remove all of this seat foam from the metal endoskeleton within. Once we've removed all of the foam and we can see the endoskeleton, we'll have better access to be able to remove the head restraint in the correct way. Or of course, if you want to just cut it off now, that's fine. So there are a few things we need to do to get the head restraint out. We would need to cut away the foam at the very back, and of course we need to undo those screws to gain access to how the head restraint is removed. Now I'm going to go ahead and do all of this off camera, and I'm going to show you what the endoskeleton looks like once we've welded in all of the various parts we need to the top of the seat to replace the head restraint. Having removed all of your seat foam from your seat, I don't know what you call this really, the metal seat frame itself, you can see we've completely removed the foam. You're left with the bracket, which is the hinge that we removed from one side of the base. You're left with your 2 threaded parts here, which is where the hinge itself bolts to. And this is where, if I show you here, this is where your head restraint went through here. So we've removed all of that, a little bit of butchery across there, and we'll be just tapping this down and making it a little less sharp a little later. And you'll see what we've done is we've actually made a frame here, and we welded this to the tubular frame of your original metal seat frame. And this is what will give you the Viscount or PMD seat shape a little bit later. Now of course you need to know exactly how big these are in order, and where to bolt them on here in order to actually make this work. I'm going to use a tape measure and try and give you some indication as to how we've done this, but we actually modelled this from an original PMD seat, so these measurements should be fairly close to what you want. Okay, so looking across the top of the seat, we're roughly 9 inches, and taking into account a little bit for the curve of course, roughly 9 inches in length. And taking it from the point we've welded onto the frame here to the centre of this curve, as we bent it round, you're looking at 8.5 inches. And just to show on the opposite side, so it is symmetrical, we're about 8.5 inches again from this point, which is the centre of the curve, to where we've welded it here. You can see that we've put a weld from the back to the frame here, small gap otherwise, so it just gives it some more rigidity, and we've done this on both sides. This bit here, you can see to get the curve, we slit it, we cut it, we made the bend, and then it's been welded again across the back, and that's how we've made this curve in one piece of this angle iron. And then we just cut it, and then once we've got it where we want, we've just done these welds. We'll just need to clean these welds up. It's welded on both sides for strength, and it's welded here, here, here and here. So this is now very firmly part of the main seat structure. So if you want to know from the point of where to get the correct angle here, the point from here to here, where it fits on, is roughly 13 inches. And it's roughly just as we begin the curve round where the angle line's fitted. And at this point, we can introduce the new seat foam. Now this seat foam has come from pmdseats.com. It's what we've recovered the other PMD seat with. And we can see we have a nice channel here and here. And we've just cut a little extra channel here for this bit when it sits on the frame. So let's see how that fits now to our frame. Fitting that in. Let's do it this way, it's a little bit easier. We slide this angle up inside like this. We open the sides and we can see that that now sits in there lovely. Turn it over and we have our PMD seat Viscount back almost ready. We can note that the PMD seat material, if we zoom in here, we can see there is a metal rod that runs all the way up here and all the way up here. And it is that rod which we will be hoggering into when we put the material on. So that's made your PMD back. So we've now got the seat foam on the PMD seat back, which we've fabricated from the original 1983 seat, or your 4th gen seat back. And we've placed the metal bar through this bit here and up into the PMD seat foam there. And all we're going to do now is put one hog ring through here and there, and that will hold the edge of the seat cover down. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we've done now is the metal bar we've hogged ring down at the very end to the metal bar. That's this metal bar here which goes through the seat cover. We've hogged ring that down to the metal bar running through the PMD seat foam, and we've just done a couple at the end there as well. We can just see the metal bar here disappearing off into the headrest part of the foam. And on this side we actually don't have a metal bar, so we've actually hogged ringed the material directly all the way along inside there, as we can see, and hopefully that will give us a similar result and it will look identical once we've got this cover on. Now the next thing we need to do is to try and get this top part over here, and we're going to go ahead and do that now. Now at this stage all we've done is peel the top part over the PMD seat foam. As you can see, we've done nothing about shaping it, getting it just where we want it. All we've done is got it to physically go over the top of the foam. We can see the insert foam here. It's a little bit too high at the moment. We'll need to pull this insert foam down. The next thing we're going to do is lay the cover down. And we're going to put these sides over. We're going to start with the right hand side here, because we need to make a slit for this in the material. Now before we actually put the slit in the material, I've just folded the side over to help me gauge exactly whereabouts in the material I need to cut. And I'm just going to use a Stanley knife and make a very small slit in the material in order to make a hole for that metal bar to go through. It's actually then easier to remove the seat frame from the actual foam and feed this through the slit itself and then back into the top of the PMD seat. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all done for you, and we'll show you how that looks once it's together. Okay, so we've peeled back the two sides. We have our little slit in the material at the bottom, which we'll sort these frayed edges out a little later. And coming back up here, the first thing you want to do now is actually sort this Velcro out. Okay, so if we just peel this back, you can see there is actually the insert in here. This is your which gives you the shape, which we showed you in other videos. And we've just put an extra piece of foam across there because the insert foam which we've used on the PMD seat back for this is off the standard seat as we saw earlier, and it doesn't actually fit perfectly for the PMD seats. It does wrap around nicely at the bottom here. This is the foam that goes inside the seat cover, but it doesn't quite reach up high enough to go onto here. So we've just added this extra bit of padding so that we get a much nicer padded finish in here. And for those who saw the first video, you will note that we didn't put that piece of foam in there. In actual fact, we told you not to, but we do recommend for a better plush finish, you fit it. Let's go ahead and join these two together. And here we have the bottom of the PMD seat back and the top, and we've pulled it nice and tight and hog ringed across there. May just add an extra one in here, because the more we've got in there, the less tension there is on each individual hog ring. Now, because this isn't a originals PMD seat back, we haven't got all of the holes that we'd normally use. So I've just added an extra little hole here so that I can hog ring the end of this material to it. And I've done the same on this side, and that will give you enough to support the base across here so that it's pulled nice and tight. Now, once we've done this, the next thing we want to do is to take these sides and pull them across to the centre so that we can hog ring them in. For those who watched the part 1 video when we recovered the PMD seat, you'll note we use the centre first on each side, and then we go to the bottom with a hog ring on each side, and then to the top. In an ideal world, as per the video that we showed you first when we did the first PMD seat, this will work very well. Unfortunately, on this seat, we managed to get one side, but the other side wouldn't quite pull over. So we came up with an ingenious idea, which we'll show you now. Okay, so we've now got the back and the base and the sides stitched together. Now, we talked just a minute ago about doing one in the middle on each side. For whatever reason, there was no way we were stretching this across here without putting so much strain on the material. We were likely to damage the stitching. So what we've done, as you can see, this is still nice and straight and parallel as it should be, but the material is definitely pulling this way. So what we've done, rather than trying to pull this material and causing damage, we've actually gone a little bit creative, and we've used a couple of zip ties in various locations instead of hog rings, just to pull them together. Now, when we've got the PMD seat back on here, all of this will be covered over, so you won't see any of it. But what we can say is that all of these lines are now sitting exactly as they are, and these crease lines will disappear in time. They'll just drop out. But all of the lines on the seat are very good. We've got a nice PMD seat hole there. We've yet to put the badge in. And if I can just get my partner here to hold the seat, I'll just expand that. You can see overall that's looking very nice. Okay, got the nice little indentation going on here and here. That's nice and equal both sides, even though we only had the metal rod on the side we're looking at here. This side, which we hog ringed in earlier, is looking fine. And if we lay the seat flat on its back, we can see it's looking nice. Everything's covered under here and across here. We just need to tidy this, just get that held there. We just need to tidy this edge up here with the stitching, which we'll do. We'll be able to pull that round, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But that is effectively your PMD seat back made from what was a 3rd gen standard 1983 Firebird seat with headrest. And now let's take a moment to just enjoy the finished product. This PMD seat took about 3 hours to recover in total, and was a bit of a pain in the butt at times, but as you can see, from a 1983 style seat to this, it's quite a transformation. If you've enjoyed this video, please go down and hit the thumbs up if you haven't already, and remember to subscribe. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.